Okay, first thing, you're going to have a little quiz on stretching, which is what we're talking about today, tomorrow. But it's not a big time quiz, it's just a little quiz. It's going to be a skyward quiz. All right. So I want to make sure that you understand what you need to know for that. And the order is important to me. I want to make sure you understand what order to do them in. So everybody, take a look at the problem I have on the board here. Would you agree there's three things that have to happen here? The 1/2, which does something to it, some kind of a stretch or a shrink. The 2, and then the 4. Would you please write down for me what they are and in what order they should be done? Like first you need to move this thing 4 spots to the right. Then you need to, etc. Okay, so give me the 3 things that need to happen here and in what order. We're not going to do the response thing on this because it would be too cumbersome. But we'll use our response app in just a sec. Okay, if you've learned nothing else, you should know you start in the middle. And if you're starting in the middle, it can be confusing whether you do this part first or this part first. Here's how I want you to think about it. Figure out the normal order, and then don't do that. Okay, so what's the normal order? Normal order says to do parentheses first, so therefore don't do them first. Do the 1/2 first. And that's going to be a, does that make it half as wide? No, that would be normal. You got to think it counterintuitively. So it would be 2 times wider. Raise your hand if you had that part right. Okay, good. Next up is, it has to go to the other thing on the inside, which is that -2, which is right 2. Raise your hand if you had that part right. Good. Then of course you got the third one, or the last thing right, which is 4 down. All right, good. So now here is a tough one, and I want you to figure this one out and then put it into your response app for your answer. Okay, I'm going to give this big old, you don't have to write this down, you just have to figure out what to do. -4, parentheses, -1/2, parentheses, x -3, parentheses, squared, plus 10. And I'm going to call this is A, this is B, this is Q, this is R, this is T, and this is P. I want to know if you should do, what order you should do them in. Should you do QR, TP, BA? Or should you do BA, PQ? There is no PP. PP is not an option. All right. Please figure out the right order. And then once you figured it out, then type it into your response app. And we'll see who gets me the right order first. Not that you have to be first. I'd rather have you be right than first. But right and first is pretty cool. I'm going to hit pause for a second while we look at those responses. Okay, so here we go. I hope you know that he started on the inside. So it's one of those 3. How do you start? Well, you say to yourself, what's normal is to start with parentheses, so we don't do that. And then what's normal is to stretch before you flip, so we don't do that. We flip before we stretch, so it's Q. Who knew to start with Q? Raise your hand. Ooh, that's like more than half of you. Awesome. Then, after that, you do the R. Then, you do the T. So, QWERT, QRT. And then on the outside, normal is stretch before you flip. So, I'm going to stretch before I flip. So, it's B, and then A, and then the last thing is P. So, it's QWERT BAP. QRT, BAP. So QWERT BAP, I'm going to look and see on my responses who had that and who had it first. I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so we're moving on. Next thing is, I want you to think of this collection of points, X and Y, and I'm going to say -1, 2, -2, 5, 0 and 0, 2 and 2, and 6 and 8. Now, if I had those points and I asked you to do this to it, I wanted you to take the function and I wanted you to go 2 times on the inside and then subtract 7, then I know you don't know what the graph looks like. So how would you know what it should look like when it was done? Well, take your collection of points and do all those things to them. I'm going to show you on this one. Just don't do this one because I'm going to show you this one. So on this one, my new points would be, I want to go, all of these have to get times by 2 on the x. True or false? False, because you do the opposite of what you think. So it said, so yes, you said times by 2, you divide all of my points by 2 on the x. So I'd say 1/2 here, and 2 divided by 2 would be -1, and 0 divided by 2 would be 0, and 2 divided by 2 would be 1, and 6 divided by 2 would be 3. Get the idea there? Okay, then my new points are, like I was saying, -1/2. This one here, -1. This one here is 0. This one here is 1, and this one's 3. Okay. Now over to the other side, on the y side, I'm going to do that to all of them. And do I actually do -7? Yes, because you can trust what is on the outside. All right, so I'm going to go -7, so 2 minus 7 would be -5. 5 minus 7 would be -2. 0 minus the 7 would be -7. 2 minus the 7 will be -5 again, and the last one is 8 minus 7, which would be 1. Do you get how that might have been tough if you had tried to do it freehand? Okay. It's easier sometimes to do these by taking your points and doing these things to them and then getting your answer. When you have a tough one on your test, which you will, I encourage you to use this way of doing it. Okay? Now, I specifically said don't do that one because I'm going to do it. Now, if you did it for practice, cool, but I want you to now do this one. Use the same technique I just showed you. And what if we needed to do this? Also, do it in the right order. All right, so all you need to do is write your answers on a chart. You don't have to graph them. Just write me this. What would you have for your final points? Do it in the right order, too. So, we'll start on where? On the inside. Mr. V, what's up? Oh, you're getting tech support back there? Okay. It's all right. Never be too proud to ask because somebody sometimes knows something that you don't know, and that's okay. Just try to learn from them. Yes. Thank you. Get your iPad out. Get started on this. All right, Mr. D, tell me how to start. You're not sure? Okay, I want you to just think it through. Where do we start on these? Inside or outside? Okay, and so it says half in there. So what do you think we should do to all my X numbers? You are correct. Okay, so why don't you tell me what you get when you do that? 0 still 0, good. Good. Okay, and now finish it. We can do this. Now that you got that down, what do you do next? All right, we got to do the y's. So now what do we do to the y's? Okay, is there a right order to do it in? Yes, there is. And it'll matter. If you think about it, if you subtract 4 from the number and then times it by 2, it'd be totally different than timesing by 2 and then subtracting 4 from it. So what normal order says is to do multiplies before subtracts. So that's what we should do. Or should we? Should we do it in the opposite order? All right, so it's on the outside, so we'll trust it. So tell me what to do with this right here. Good. 2 times 2 minus 4 would be 0. Good. And how about the 5? 5 times the 2 makes 10. 10 minus the 4 is 6. Okay. Just why don't you tell me each part? Good. Good. All right. Wait a minute. What did you say on that one? 8 times 16 minus 4. All right. Good. Okay. Did any of you have different answers than him? I think you're right, because it's not humanly possible you made a mistake there. How many had the same exact answers as him? All right, good. That's how you do those more difficult kind. So if I had given you a picture instead of that set of numbers, do you get how it's the same exact thing? If I had given you a picture of my funny looking dog face, okay, and asked you to write down the points that were important, you'd have this point, this point, this point, this point, this point, and probably the lower parts of these. Okay, so you would write down all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points, and then do what I just showed you. Okay, so when you have a weird looking picture and you ask you to do this to it, I don't recommend you try to freehand draw something that's getting twice as wide and twice as big and move 4 over to the right. If you try to freehand it, it won't work very well. If you do what I just showed you, it'll work way better. All right, moving on. This kind of problem, I want you to do B. Give it a shot right now. You're just writing me an equation for it. Just write me an equation for that. And if you can do that, then I'll know we're ready for the next step. In case you can't read it, it says vertical stretch factor 5, horizontal stretch factor 3. Now some of you might be thinking, so do I use a 3 or do I use a 1/3 on the inside? Well, the key is the word stretched. If it's stretched with a factor of 3, can you make it smaller? No, it wants you to make it bigger. Stretching means get bigger. And then it says left 6 and down 2. All right, so all of these, it's an x squared, so I got to make it like plenty of room, but that's kind of how I start, with an x squared. And then, what has to go inside and outside and stuff? Well, I'm going to start with this whole stretched vertically factor of 5. It's on the outside, and there's a 5, and I can trust it, and it's just what I'd expect. Okay? And then horizontally by a factor of 3. That's where it seems like maybe I should just put a 3 in there, but that would actually make it smaller. And would that mean I was stretching it? No, that would mean I was shrinking it. So I want to put a 1/3 in there to make it stretch. All right, and then the next part is left 6, and lastly down 2. Raise your hand if you had it perfect. Awesome, except mine's wrong. And you all would have made this mistake probably, and I didn't mark it wrong on your last quiz. Yes? You needed parentheses. Okay, but then you said that you had it right. Well, how many of you had parentheses before I said that? Okay, 3, 4 of you. Nice job. Cause, okay, good. 5, 6 of you. So, just remember, you need to throw in those parentheses because otherwise it is a totally different thing without the parentheses. All right, question. Oh, having this all over 3 works, but if you just put the x over 3, the problem is that's like not having the parentheses. You know what I'm saying? Because I'd need the parentheses telling me that this whole thing gets divided by 3. You could actually do that. All right. Okay, so I think we've practiced enough. You now have your assignment, which is just finish the worksheet we started yesterday. Okay, and I do need to get those scores from you after I stop the recording here.